It's the Solar One Sci-Fi podcast.
Hello and welcome to this week's Solar One Sci-Fi podcast. And over in the corner we have the ultra demigod of science fiction. My co-host, Michael Ball, aka Coke. Check out his channel, very entertaining. And I think that's probably the best thing I'm going to say after the conversation with Stan. So there you go.
We're not going to share the conversation, but it was an interesting conversation.
Yes, it was. Yes.
And you're the demigod. You're also the demigod of science fiction. So it's
thank you very much.
You're like the other half. It's like we're two sort of like.
We're like two opposing
demigods.
Sides of the Force. We're like the Force, but split into two.
So are you the Sith or are you the Jedi?
I don't know. I've been questioning a bit about being a Sith.
Well, we need to talk about that with the new Ahsoka
we should
series.
do. I've been watching like some videos about. I know we're going to go into Star Wars in a minute, but I don't think I'd want to be a Sith Lord because they're a bit nasty to each other. When you've got an apprentice, it's all about torturing them, and then one day you've got to hope he's going to knock you off, and then he trains another one to knock him off. I mean, I don't really see the logic in that.
Well, but it's like the work ethic, isn't it? I mean, we've all had a boss.
Really?
It's a bit like, it's like, yeah. I mean, let's just say that certain individuals I've encountered in the past, when it comes to management, are more like a Sith than a boss.
Oh God, yeah, I never really thought of it that way. I think I'll stick to being a Jedi.
So basically, the bosses are Siths, and we're like the.
So we're definitely both on the light side of the Force.
Well, but the new ones, they're kind of dark Jedi, aren't they? They're not quite.
Yeah, that's what I want to discuss this. It's going to be quite interesting. You know, he's died, didn't you?
I know. Ray something, I think his name. No,
he was. I
know. Yeah.
He did a Punisher movie about 20 years ago. I didn't realise that was him. I knew we'd done it, but he was in a series. I do recommend you should get hold of. Have you ever seen it? BBC called Rome.
No.
They only made 2 seasons and spent millions on it. It's set during Roman Empire, big political event. It's about these 2 soldiers,
right?
And once you start watching it, you can't turn it off. Okay. I think that's what made him famous. He's like
I wasn't aware of him. But I did hear before that they'd finished production of Ahsoka season 1, and that the actor had died. So, I mean, obviously, it's awful that he died anyway, but. At least they've got to film his stuff.
He sort of got up a couple of he's been in stuff, but they reckon this would have brought him to the forefront as that much.
I think so far he's been really good. He's been really good character.
It's such a shame I didn't know he died until after I'd watched it.
Yeah, because I think it's in the end it's like for Ray or something. He has some sort of dedication, which is good.
You wanna watch something really good. I do. It's called Rome.
Okay.
It's 2 seasons. I do recommend it. It might even be worth covering on air at some point. Yeah. It is very good. Okay. And they cancelled it. It's such a shame. I didn't know that was him because he was so good in this. What I saw in the 2 episodes.
Yeah.
So, what's overall opinion of Star Wars?
It's weird because after we were pretty harsh on Andor. Which I still think that the reason we're harsh at it is because it's a good series in principle, but it just doesn't feel to me like Star Wars. This does feel like Star Wars. It's got action. It's quite highly populated female characters. There's not many male characters at the moment, which I don't mind that.
They've been kicking off about.
I don't mind it. Why not? I mean, I think.
So after I watched the episodes, I went on YouTube. And I watched. I'm not going to say who did the reviews, but some of them was not happy. They're calling it a very female-centric show. I didn't have a problem with it.
I don't have a problem either.
It was really good.
I don't have a problem either. Not at all.
The one thing that worries me about it.
What's that?
It's very tied into the Rebels series. And
I told you this.
Seen it. You said that.
Get a bit.
Send me a message.
I think that's the. I mean, I have seen Rebels. I could understand it if I hadn't seen it, but you don't know about what's the guy that the younger one who went off with Thrawn.
The apprentice, Ezra.
Right?
Ezra. Oh,
we saw a hologram
kidnapped
of him.
with Thrawn at the end.
At the end of the world between worlds, whatever it is.
The whale thing.
The whale thing. That's all going to come back. Now, the one thing which is interesting is that they are, for the first time that I know of in Star Wars, they're going to be going to a different galaxy. Now, this is big, isn't it? Because with the Force, maybe the Force wouldn't work in that galaxy. Like how we don't have a Force in that galaxy. Well, the saying,
you know, the evil woman, her that was in Mandalorian, who Ahsoka fought.
Yeah, the one the one that Night Witch is. The Night Witch, yeah.
Night Witch.
Yeah, Night Witch.
Well, they're saying that. I watched.
Actually, that's Morgan. I think her character's name is Morgan.
That's it. They're saying that the Night Witches from the Clone Wars, they come from another galaxy now.
Oh yeah, I think I heard.
I could be wrong. It's what's rumored, you know. But I found it very interesting. Some people said it was very slow. But I think it.
Oh yeah, compared to Andor, the first 3 or 4 episodes.
We were in it.
Oh yeah, I didn't get that at all. It felt Star Wars to me. It had
did.
Characters. I liked it.
I didn't know Sabine Wren had Force. Has she got Force powers then?
From what I understand, until this point, she's never had Force powers.
So she's just training.
So she's training in the ways of the Jedi, but she's not a Force user.
Right.
From what I understand.
Because I'll tell you something, the scene I love is when it started, when she's at that temple to get that map, and she put the lightsabers into the ground and just spun them both round with the Force, and she dropped. I love that scene.
Yeah, that was pretty awesome.
I honestly, I was very impressed. I've watched it twice.
I've watched it twice.
I was gutted because I wanted more straight away.
Oh, I know.
When it had finished, I wanted 3 and 4. After this.
Episode 3 apparently is quite a short one. It's just to warn you. Episode 3 is a short one. Right. It's about 35 minutes long or something. But episode 5 apparently is going to be. And I've heard that episode 5 is going to be the big one where there's going to be a certain character coming back, who you'll know very well when he.
What, Vader?
Yeah, apparently it's going to be Anakin. But whether it's going to be a flashback or whether it's a ghost Force ghost Anakin, I don't know, but it's going to be interesting. I know that Hadrian.
It should be interesting.
Yeah. Anyway, I'm all for this series. It feels again more like Star Wars. I'm enjoying it. It's great. I hope it goes.
I'm fascinated by the new. Well, they're not.
The Dark Jedi.
Yeah, Bear and Skull, and it's. You're frozen.
Yeah, it's all right. It'll clear in a second to my end. It's all right.
You're frozen.
I know. I'm back. Can you see me?
Right. I was fascinated by the 2 antagonists. Yes, there was the time paradox there.
Yeah, I know. Yeah. Balon Skull is his name, as you say. He's good.
I'm just fascinated by them. Who is he?
Yeah, I know. It is interesting.
So where was he during Order 66?
We don't know.
Where was he during Order 66?
They did mention that he's disappeared since the end of the Clone Wars, which was Order 66.
Yeah.
So I assume we're going to find out. No, it's really good. It's a long wait though each week.
So, question I've got for you then, and then after. What was the last Star Wars series before this? What was the last one? It wasn't Andor.
It was Andor. Oh no, it wasn't. It was The Mandalorian season 3.
Mandalorian season 3. Do you remember the scene? I think it one of the final episodes where we saw the Dark Imperial Council. Right. So if Thrawn is off in another galaxy, right, and well, if Moff Gideon's dead or not, we don't know. But I thought that council served Thrawn.
I think that they're kind of loosely together because Thrawn's not around. I think
they had Thrawn's second in command. He were there. That old fella. He's like his.
Yeah, but I think he's just a deputy. I think he's filling in because Thrawn's disappeared. but really Thrawn is the one that runs things. But I don't know how long it's been that he's been in
this other galaxy, though. He's in this other galaxy.
Yeah, I know, but I mean, I assume that they don't. I don't know whether it's.
Right. I just wondered
I'm
what
not sure.
You made of that.
No, I'm not sure. The way I make it, they know that Thrawn is missing. I don't know. It was a bit unclear because they did mention Thrawn, but I don't know what they said now. I can't remember exactly what they said about where he was or whether they knew.
Yeah.
I can't remember.
Yeah.
It's been a while since I need to rewatch.
Well, we'll find out.
Again.
I just wondered, when they were going to get the connection from that moment to this. Where we are now, because I'm pretty hyped up for this now.
Do you think we're going to get some more crossovers, like with Boba Fett or someone, or maybe the Mandalorian? I mean, they really did that with Boba Fett with the Mandalorian crossover, and everyone was annoyed about that because 2 episodes were more like the Mandalorian than Boba Fett. Do you think they'd do the same thing with this series?
I don't think Boba Fett's coming back, is it?
I don't know.
I don't know. I may know. Well, I can't say they might put Luke Skywalker into Ahsoka. They might build him back on that.
Oh, I mean, we know that Ahsoka knows Luke Skywalker because we've seen them together, so it's possible.
But apparently, all this is going to some big movie. What they're planning. This is all building up to when Thrawn takes over the galaxy or whatever.
Well, it's going to obviously link slowly towards the First Order, isn't it? And it's going to be the sequels. I mean, this is all in between. So we know in the end the Rebel Alliance does fail, and this is all going to be linked to that. But how they do it's fascinating to watch.
Yeah,
I'm really interested.
Because if they can get this right, then the 3 newer films are going to look a lot better in a big story arc, aren't they?
Yeah,
they might be able to make it work now.
It's weird with the sequel trilogy because the first of the sequel trilogy is the best, even though it's a bit like A New Hope. The worst one was the second one, The Last Jedi, and then the third one was a bit rushed, and they tried to fix stuff, but I still enjoy them. I like all Star Wars stuff. The only series I've had a difficulty with is the Andor series, and even that on subsequent viewings, when you know what the pacing is like and it's different, it's well written. It just doesn't feel quite Star Warsy enough for me. I don't know what makes it Star Wars.
The one thing I liked about Andor that you were seeing the everyday person living under Imperial rule. Yeah. I like that. That's what
it got better as the series went on as well. When it was the first few which I thought was the weakest. And once we started seeing more of the Empire and stormtroopers and all this sort of stuff, it actually did. It's all right. I think season 2 will be better.
Because you get to see a face behind the stormtrooper person, and I quite like that. Yeah. It's like that episode with Mando where he went into that cafeteria in that Imperial base. And he met that officer, and he was like a fanatic
for the Empire. Oh, that was a great episode.
That's
one of my favourite episodes.
It's giving you a face of the mentality of the 9-to-5 dude that's joined up or her. So I found that interesting.
And I'm just like it all. I mean, I think that they're doing a great job so far. It seems like an eternity to wait each week for the new episodes now, but that's the nature of it. I'd love to just watch the whole thing one afternoon, all 8 episodes. And,
definitely. That's what I'm gonna do. Yeah.
But I mean, I will rewatch it once. But it is what it is. I mean, obviously we're gonna have a big void next year. From what I understand now, I've heard now that apparently Andor season 2, they did finish it, but they made it slightly shorter to finish it in time before the strikes. So it might be, because I think it's originally supposed to be 12 episodes for season 2, the same as season 1. And I've always said about Andor, they could have made that for 6 episodes and condensed it all down, and it would have been a lot more solid, I think. So hopefully next year we'll still get that. But whether they got to finish it all properly, because the actors aren't available, the writers aren't available, still no sign of this strike finishing, which is really getting on nerves because it's been sort of like going on for quite a long time now. The more we wait, I mean, the Star Trek, we don't know. I mean, all we got next year to look forward to, if that's the right term, is the last season of Discovery. We haven't got anything else, and some of the animated stuff as well, which I'm not bothered about.
Well, let's change the soap opera into a soap channel. Let's change this into a soap opera.
Brookie. We could do Brookside and Lights, all right?
I did an article before we move on to the film. Like, I saw some pops up on my phone. It said, I don't watch soaps at all, but I remember the character when I did watch. Cindy Bale.
Oh, yeah, I remember. Yeah.
And I was like, yeah, but didn't they kill her off about 15 years ago?
Yeah, as far as I remember.
And I thought, well, what they're doing this?
Is she back again?
Yeah, she's come back from dead, yeah. I mean, that's how bad things, that's where we're at now.
I still remember when Trevor was buried under the patio in Brookside. That was brilliant.
Yeah. I'll never forget that scene when they thought he was dead and they came running out of the garage. I just remember that.
Which one? What happened?
You know, after the kill, when they poisoned him?
Yeah.
Trevor Jordache. And then they put him in the garage where it was like a spare room, like the garage.
Oh.
Next out, and they thought he was dead because they thought
and he was still. That's right. And he was still alive.
And he came running back in. You just jumped out of your chair when he came running back in. Said you tried poisoning me.
All right. The episode where they find Trevor's body 2 years after he's under the patio, his hand is still okay. It's not even like a skeleton, and they're putting up some, and he's like, "Oh, there's a hand," and it was just a grey hand. I thought, how come it's not decomposed? Just bones. It wasn't. It was a proper. Anyway, I still watch Brookside. I've got the whole series.
No, I tell you, best soap opera.
I'm up to about episode 2,225.
Right. Okay.
Out of 2,900. That's quite a lot. And it's been good.
Is that how many episodes they made of it then? 29.
Yeah.
Not a lot, really, is it? Really?
And it went on from 1982 to about 2001. I think it was something like that. 2002. It was on for about 20 years.
Yeah. And it was on twice a week, Frita?
I think it must have been. I don't know. I think it changed. I think it was twice. Then it became.
And I remember they had the omnibus on a Saturday, didn't they? So I remember watching that. Yeah.
Anyway, like I said, I mean, so.
Yeah, no. Let's get off. Let's get back.
No. So listen, actually, what we'll do is we'll pause Skype now. And we'll go into our focus of the week. So this should be a good one. So we'll be right back.
It's the
Solar Sci-Fi
focus of the week.
Right, so this week we are focusing on a remake of a classic movie. We have reviewed the original movie, but this time we're reviewing the version from 2002, and that is, of course, The Time Machine. I actually thought it was made slightly later than that, so I'm surprised it's actually already over 20 years old, which is quite scary. It seems like it's not that old a film. It's obviously a film loosely adapted by John Logan from the actual title by H.G. Wells, the executive producer was Simon Wells, who was the great grandson of the original author and who served as a director, which is quite surprising. The film stars Guy Pearce, Orlando Jones, Samantha Mumba, Mark Addy, and Jeremy Irons. And one of these people in this film is what is the biggest no-no, which we'll get to once we actually talk about it. I like the cast, but there's one person in this movie who I really think fucked it up a bit personally. But anyway, Martin, what did you think of the 2002 Time Machine?
Well, first there was the original one in the 60s.
Which is great, which is a really good film.
That's the masterpiece.
1960, I think it was.
And then there was one in 1977.
Time After Time as well. There was the one with Malcolm McDowell.
There's another one.
Oh, is there? I didn't know about another one.
Yeah, it's a guy. It's made for TV. This actor has got a porno tash, and he builds a time machine that looks like a disco platform.
Yeah.
And he works for an evil corporation, travels into the future. Same story, but it's all centered around this corporation in the future.
Is it worth a watch?
It's fucking bad, but yeah, it's on my channel actually. It's on my channel.
Oh, okay.
It was made in 1970 something. It's made for TV.
If I remember, I'll post a link on
I can send it over to you.
But what I'll do is I'll on the show notes for this episode, I'll try to remember to put the notes into the description, and then you might get some people your way.
But the time machine he's got an old 70s computer and keyboard, and it's like a triangle shaped thing, and it's got disco lights around it, and actually the time effects are not bad. but it's terrible. It's cheap. It's nasty. But I just thought I had to get that.
Yeah, well, there's also
I love it.
There's another one called Hot Tub Time Machine as well. Have you seen that one?
Yeah. I've seen that. Yeah.
I mean, I think what we'll definitely have to review in the future is the one from the 1970s with Malcolm McDowell, Time After Time. That's another one worth
reviewing. I've not seen that in years.
Yeah, that's worth a watch as well. That was quite good.
Yeah.
But anyway, this version, what do you think of it?
I saw this at the cinema and I loved it. I saw this twice. Now, I know people have given this film a bad time, but all right, they added a bit more. He lost his girlfriend, woman he loved, and he tried to save her, and he couldn't. I liked all that because I think they were trying to go with the causalities of time travel.
They can't. Yeah, that's right. Because they did explain. They'd explain why. Cause he went back in time and then he saved her, and then rather than the mugger stabbing her, then she gets run over by so it's like, you know how they have that course correction thing they have like in Star Trek, and whether it's the same sort of principle that things are naturally going to happen even if you try to change it. They didn't sort of like
focus points in time.
Sort of like focus, and you can't sort of like change it or something.
No,
that was quite interesting.
It was, and I found, you see, the original, I'm not going to knock it, the original is a masterpiece. Everything about it, even everything.
I loved it.
But it is quite forward. He gets in the time machine, he goes forward, beats up all Morlocks, pulls the woman, comes back, gets books, and goes back.
That's the end of it. That's it.
That's it. It's still a great film, but at that time, they weren't really, time travel was just going forwards and backwards. They never really went into the let's change history sort of thing. This film, I found it added a lot more. And what I loved about this film, because in the original, the Morlocks have machines. They've got machines, and they come across as being quite primitive as well, animalistic. But there's a mind and intelligence behind them machines. Something's running them. They're too stupid. There's something in the background. Even in the original film, there is something.
But it wasn't elaborated in the original one. We just know that they had.
But you surmise there is something there more intelligent. And I found with this film, it did that with Jeremy Irons. I thought it were absolutely fantastic. That he said, if it weren't for there were two lots. There were like the savage ones, and then them with the higher brain functions, and they keep them in control because the food supply.
It's like a Borg queen or something. It's like a similar
and I did like that. Now the one point in the film that really, you're not going to let him go back in time machine, because if you're that intelligent, he's just going to go back and change.
Yeah.
Well, he could do. He's got potential, unless, like you said, with the girlfriend. No matter what he did to save her. Yeah, if he hadn't have done that, he wouldn't have ended up in that future to save the human race. Do you know what I mean?
Oh, yes. I mean, yes.
Yeah, do you know what I mean? So you could say that it was his destiny to go into the future.
Which is why the girl always kept dying, because he had to go to the future. I hadn't thought about that, actually. That's a good point.
And I love the bit where he turned the time machine into a temporal bomb.
Yes.
And it wipes them out, because he goes into a future where the Morlocks have just dominating the planet completely.
Yeah, he goes further ahead.
And then he goes back, and you know, he says some I control fate or whatever, and there's that scene. I love the thing of the time bubble around the time machine.
It was really good special effects.
I thought that were brilliant.
I still
around him.
I know it's older, but I still prefer the effects of the original one. The original effects when he stops like in World War One, and then he goes ahead, and that was the sound going ahead. But I thought the effects were good, and I like the design of the new time machine as well. I thought it was another.
What did you think when they destroyed the moon? When he went into the 21st century and they were colonising the moon, and they blew it up accidentally? What did you think to all that?
I thought it was interesting because at one point he goes to 2024. And it was like, this is what I'm saying. And of course, it wasn't there long. Then I think he jumps to the 2070s when the moon is because they were mining it or something, and it broke up, and it's
Yes,
plummeting, but
colony,
because it's so badly damaged, it's affected all the gravitational pull and all this.
Well, you see the moon breaking, like a chunk of it breaking.
Saw a bit of it off or something.
Yeah. I found that I really did like that. I thought they could have copied original. They could have gone with that, but they didn't. I think because it was 2002, 30 years, 40 years later, they had to go about it in a different way. The story was the same.
It wasn't just a generic kind of complete retelling. It had its own sort of ingredients thrown into the mix to make it its own. That's what you're trying to say, I think. Yeah. The only criticism I have of the film, and I know
you're going to say.
All right, what am I going to say?
Samantha Mumba.
No,
because
I didn't mind her. No, she was fine. I didn't like Jeremy Irons as the head one.
Really?
He really camped it up.
Do you think?
I didn't like. He was just like, "Oh, hello, and I'm the brain," and it's like, "Oh, I'm so." And I couldn't stand him. And I thought the character and the idea was great, but Jeremy Irons just played it like a pantomime villain. I couldn't stand him.
Really? Do you really?
Yeah.
I thought it was.
I didn't like it. I didn't like him at all. Couldn't stand him.
A lot of them complained about Samantha Mumba.
No, she was all right.
I've never had a problem with her.
No, I didn't have any problems with any of the other characters or the actors. I like the fact that I like the hologram character. I thought he was great.
Fantastic!
He was really funny.
I love the scene where he met her in the future, a million years on or whatever.
Yeah.
And he said, "I remember you."
I still remember you. Yeah, he was great.
I love that scene.
And he even goes "Live long and prosper" at one point. You hear the Star Trek door sound, which I thought was really cool.
Yeah.
And then when he mentions like science fiction, and you see an image of the War of the Worlds from 1953 coming up, and I thought that was great. But Jeremy Irons, no, I just thought he was just like, he's behind you. He's just like, oh, he was so annoying. I couldn't stand him. I like Jeremy Irons. I've seen him in some good roles, but I just thought he camped it up and he just played it.
Really, I thought he was very good.
No, I didn't get on with him. So
I like the Morlock having like an intelligence behind it all.
Me too. The idea that it's just the way that he didn't play it right.
Okay.
He didn't play. And the idea was, as you say, it was a cheap Morlock. You had the different casts. You had like the ones that are like the warriors and more primitive. You have the brain behind it, which you would have said was potentially what was in the original, but it wasn't followed. All that's great. The whole thing. Jeremy Irons just like, piss off, just go away.
What did you think to Guy Pearce's character? How do you think? Do you think
it was alright. I mean, I still preferred the actor for
Rod Taylor.
Rod Taylor. I preferred his version. I like Malcolm McDowell's version as well. Actually, he was fine. I would say. He was all right. I would say he's fantastic.
I found Alexander Hardigan, that was his name, the character, wasn't it? The time traveller.
Oh, yeah.
I found out when he lost the woman he loved, when he lost her, twice he tried to save her, he realised that time wasn't something, it's not as simple as, like, there's nothing for me here now. Mm-hmm. There's even that great friend of his, that mate of his, you know.
Oh the one that's at the end when he sort of like
he's in the original.
Yeah, he's in the original.
And he's got nothing. Philby, that's shit. And he goes into the future driven by just emptiness. That he's looking for something better because he's not going to get her back. Without her, there's no point in him existing in that century because already
she's gone.
His intellect is far above everybody else's.
That's right. So he's already out of time anyway. In many ways, in respect to.
I love that.
Yeah, that's clever.
He went into the future, and when he got into the future, it was like. Where in the original, there's that great scene with Rod Taylor, and he says to what they call him, the Eloi, that's it.
Eloi, that's it.
Yeah. When he finds them in that abandoned civilization, that dome, and they're all eating, and he says, "We have books," and he takes them into that room. There's them books, and he puts his hand, it all crumples to dust, and he shouts at him.
That's right. Yeah, and
people have died and built civilization.
And you're just sitting around like eating fish all the time. It just literally.
You know, and it's like that, and that is a very powerful moment, and you get that in this film because that's how he is. He's looking for something better.
Mind you, I mean,
when he gets there, he don't find it.
The Wiener, I think her name's Wiener from the first one.
Wiener.
Wiener.
Yeah.
She was. I prefer the original Wiener to the second one. I didn't mind the new one, but the first. But did you notice that the ethnicity of the Eloi in the future one, in the new one, were sort of like, and I think that's very realistic.
I think that's how it would be.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. In the future, we because of course we are multiracial in the future. As more races have children, there'll be less of a generic Caucasian. It'll be more of a mix.
Yeah,
I thought that was clever.
I think they got a lot of it right.
I think they did get a lot of it right. But it's just Jeremy Irons. He was my big grudge to bear on the movie. Seriously,
I'm surprised. You really surprised me with that.
I couldn't stand him. I just thought he was so camp. I just didn't like him. He was like Bernard Cribbins or something. It was like he would have done better. Yeah, didn't like him.
I might give that a look today. Actually, I might watch that today.
Something about him, I don't know whether it was intentional, but he just came across as, oh, this is a ridiculous thing. Oh, let's put on the makeup, and he looked a bit like a wraith from Stargate Atlantis as well. Even though it's not, he obviously wasn't, but it's just something about him. He just didn't come across as a villain that I could take seriously and respect.
I will. The one thing I will say that I wouldn't let you're not going to let somebody get back in the time machine and go off because
you'll change the future.
Well, could he? I mean, could he change all that? I mean, that's the thing when he tried to say.
Yeah, but you had that in science fiction. You have some things where you can't change the future. This film had already established that important, as we've already said, certain things can't change.
Yeah.
But you get the films where it's an alternate timeline. So the original still exists, but you're in a different time. I don't know. It's one of those time travel things.
Yeah. I mean, he could have crossed over at another timeline. I mean, that's it. But I thought the film, all in all, it's got the new one does have a couple of faults in there. Mm-hmm. Don't get me wrong. The original one is the superior one.
Oh yeah. But,
I just think the remake, it added just a bit more. It's like if you added like an extra couple of pages to the original, that you could have filled it out just a bit further. Do you know what I mean? And the new one sort of did that, but the new one is not the original. But I thought the new one did hold up for what it was. Of course it's got...
Oh, yeah. Oh, it did.
But I am a Guy Pearce fan. I do think he is a good actor.
Yeah, because he was in the the Alien Prometheus, wasn't he? He was in Prometheus.
Oh yeah, he was. He played
the
Wayland.
Yeah. He did.
Very good in that.
I've not seen him in many. I mean, obviously, I still remember him from his Neighbours days back in the day. I've not seen him in a lot of stuff.
I saw him in a science fiction film where he goes up to a space station. It's a prison.
Not Elysium, is it?
No. He made a film. It must have been in early 2000s.
Well, I'll have to look that up.
He goes up to a space station. He's like I think he's a copper or something. And he goes up to a space station. It's really good. And it did get a minor release at the cinema. It's really it's like Die Hard on the space station.
Oh, okay. It's something and you enjoyed it. You thought it was worth a watch?
I thought it was good. It's worth a look. Yeah.
Okay.
But I forgot what it was called. I don't think it was like a big hit. It was like.
Just trying to see through what.
It's like back then you got certain films that got a minor release and then they got more known on like own format. There's a film called No Escape with Ray Liotta. It's a science fiction one,
right? Which
I'd like to cover.
Sure.
But it's not a lot of people don't know about it, but they put the money into it.
It's weird with certain films. It's like I watched Edge of Tomorrow recently with Tom Cruise.
Oh, yeah, I keep meaning to go back.
And I want to review that with you as well.
Yeah, I
think that's a solid film. I really do recommend that if you've not seen it for a while, bring it out, bung it in, and give it a watch. It's a good time.
I'd like to do No Escape with Ray Liotta. It's set in the future.
Tell you what,
prison.
I'll tell you what we could do, right? Because next week, if it's still okay with you, I want to do Airplane 2, the sequel.
definitely looking forward to that.
And then the week after, we can then do your film, which I'll watch.
Yeah.
And then the week after, we could do Edge of Tomorrow.
Yeah, I keep for the last 3 months, I see it on my TV, and I'm going to watch that.
Yeah, if you have a quiet evening, it's really good. I really enjoy it.
I've heard they're going to be making a sequel to it, apparently.
I heard it didn't do very well, which is why I don't know. I mean, it's kind of wrapped itself up as if I won't say if you haven't seen it for a while, but I suppose it could do a sequel. I don't know.
That came out more or less the same time as Oblivion, though, didn't it?
Yeah. I think it was about 2008 or something like that.
You're
I think it was something like that. I don't know. But anyway, we're obviously these are future shows. Let's just sort of wrap up with the time machine before we continue with the other stuff. But so basically, I suppose it's that time. Is there anything else you want to say about the film that you remember that you want to discuss, or have we just about sort of covered it?
I would like to see a remake.
Another time machine
I'd
remake.
like to, actually, I know you might find this a bit cheesy, but I would like to see Time Machine remade. Right? I'd like to see it remade, adding more to the story of the future and adding a lot more stuff around it.
Didn't in the original book, he actually did go right to the end of the Earth.
Yeah, he did, yeah.
So they've never done that in any versions that I can remember.
It's just a big load of giant creatures walking around.
Yeah, where evolved. So far in the future that creatures have evolved.
Quite depressing.
Yeah, and they've never gone there. And I wouldn't mind seeing that just for reference.
But in the original movie, when he's travelling through time, there is a point where human civilization advances incredibly, and then he overshoots that advancement.
Goes past it, doesn't he?
He overshot because when he's in that room with the talking rings,
yes,
there's stuff, there's technology and advanced. So there was a human advanced civilization there. What happened then? I'd like to see a trilogy. I'd like to see a Time Machine trilogy. Like you get the original film, but you add more to it, and then we get a sequel, like a decent 3-story trilogy. First book. And then take it somewhere else with a 2 and 3.
Yeah,
I don't know if you could
count me in. I'd certainly like to see that. Yeah, that's certainly good. So I suppose it's rating time now. What would you rate it out of 10?
I'm going to give it a 7.
I thought you'd give it higher than that.
No, because you've opened a few interesting points, which I have to agree with you.
Because I was going to give it a rating of 7.5. So, and it would be.
I can push it to 7.5.
All right,
I can go
7.5. All right, so let's
can't go beyond that.
No, okay.
Yep.
But like I said, it is a good. I mean, if you haven't seen it, check it out. It is worth a watch.
No, I've watched both together, and it is interesting.
It's basically the same story.
Yeah, but it's just one's got. It's just having a bit. The first one's a masterpiece, but I just wish there were more in it. Do you know what I mean? There's more in it. That there were more about that civilization where he overshot, and more about what's behind the Morlock, who builds the machines, and I'd like to know about that. I think there's a whole world there to discover, and I'd like to go into that world in the future.
And also, what you got to remember that this was one of the very first ideas of traveling through time. It was, and of course, H.G. Wells again was so ahead of the game, and it is one of the most interesting concepts in science fiction. Of course, it's been done to death in so many different versions of different shows and movies and stuff. But
it's by
I just find exactly Doctor Who was inspired by it.
Well, he is. You think about it. You look at Doctor Who.
Of course you do. Yeah.
The early incarnation.
1960s,
always
1963.
Sort of Victorian, wasn't he?
Yeah, exactly.
Do you know what I mean?
I hadn't thought about that. The early Doctors were dressed more like a Victorian, out of time. Yeah. That's a good point. I hadn't thought about that.
Do you remember that? Do you remember when you saw the TARDIS when it were all wood inside with Tom Baker?
Yeah, his secondary console.
You only see it for one season of episodes.
Yeah, one season. I think it's in there.
That when I saw a clip of that recently, that like old control, that reminded me of very H.G. Wells did that. And all
I hadn't thought about it, but you're right. It was more
all
of
his gadgets, like the timepiece he carries with him. He has these like the. I know you can put your conscious, but he carries sort of like Victorian sort of.
I hadn't thought about
gadget.
that. I think you're right. I think it's more influenced
only
by
in the beginning. Only in the beginning. Yeah.
But it's gone its own way now in 2023.
Yes,
but in the early years, definitely, I can see a lot more influence of the time machine in that than I'd see. So it's funny how we both learned things about our respective TV shows and films that we watch, and I think that's why we come along every week and have these discussions, because it is interesting. But it's a good film. Like I said, check it out if you haven't seen it. It's out there and you can buy it, or it's probably stream it, or whatever you can do. It's good. Right, Martin, I think that's pretty much it, isn't it?
Yeah, I think that's it. We've covered. There ain't much to. There's the new science fiction series starting on Netflix, Moon something.
Oh, okay.
They're all making a big thing about it. I've not watched the trailer. It's Moon Sailor something. They're all saying it's this big thing on Netflix. So I don't know what it's about, but I will have a look and I'll let you know.
if it's worthwhile, and let me know. June 2 has been postponed until next year. We haven't talked about that yet, the movie, which is a shame because I was looking forward to that one, but I think it's supposed to come out at the end of this year, but because of the writers' strikes, that's got put back. What else was there? I was going to say something else, but it's gone now. No. And Sci-Fanatics. You remember we had Nick on from Sci-Fanatics?
Yes.
He asked me to come back. I'm going to do a live thing with him on Saturday on his channel, which is very kind of him. So I'll obviously that should be interesting. I think he wants me to check out all the rest of Star Trek Lower Decks, which I've seen. Season 1
How many
and 2.
seasons is that?
I think they've done 3 and they're going to release a 4th one, but I have to say I don't remember a lot of the episodes. It never sticks in my head, any of the episodes.
Well, this ain't first season. I don't know.
And it's a good series, but I just can't really remember any of it. So it's going to be interesting to do. So I'm going to watch the rest of that until.
I keep meaning to watch Prodigy, but I just never get round to it.
I mean, I will purposely watch that now because we're going to have a big void until Discovery next year, and that's the only thing we've got to look forward to. And I think, from what I understand, that's going to be exactly the same as the previous years. I don't think they're, I keep hoping they might have learnt their lessons from the mistakes they made, but I don't know. We can't judge it till it's come along. But
no, we'll probably get the greatest series that Star Trek ever made with Discovery.
Well, if they did what
you never know, they might have done it right. You know what I mean?
I don't know.
Well, I doubt it, but you can live in hope, can't you? What is there any news on the Stargate front? Is there any news?
I looking at the stuff from Side Trek, and hi Jay if you're watching, really nice guy. He's saying apparently I think they're trying to get Brad Wright back involved with it.
Yeah, I saw the JPEG for that.
So again, there's lots of potential stuff, but nothing has been formally announced yet.
Why are they messing about?
I don't know why they're messing about, because it's a very important franchise. It's one of the biggest ones.
Worth billions.
And
if you get it right, if you get that right, they're going to be raking it in.
I actually think that with what they did with Picard season 3, it's going to really ricochet in a lot of these other series, because they got a person who knew what they were doing and they made it so fantastic, and they're gonna, and everyone has really praised it, really have, and no one ever praises anything as much as they did that, and so. And also they're really doing quite a good job with Strange New Worlds as well. So I'm hoping that these, like MGM or whatever, they're going to look at what they've tried to do with Star Trek since they brought it back in 2017. They did a misstep. They started it all off wrong. Eventually they stumbled, and then they got sort of now they've got to the point where they're in a good sprint. And then they got simple.
You don't need major rewrites.
Just continue the universe that we're familiar with.
Continue it on 25 years later.
Yeah, that's all they need to do. It's a basic thing.
Create a whole new political background for it to be set in. The world knows about it. Earth's changed.
It's probably more likely to work, because it's not like Star Trek where they completely changed the Klingons. They completely changed everything with Discovery and made it unrecognizable. It's set in contemporary times. So the only thing that they could do, which would be interesting, is, which I think they would do, is that technology will be ahead of us compared to our 2023 from all the stuff that they've done since they opened the Stargate in 1994. It could be really interesting.
But that's what I mean. Earth's now one of the big. Earth's one of the
an alliance of planets. Yeah,
in the block.
with the Asgard. Well, actually, the Asgard are gone, but
but they've got their technology.
Yeah. Mind you, most of the alliance planets have gone though. The Asgard are gone. There's
some gold out there. There's be one or two, but
no, I think they're all gone now. I think the last one was Barl, and he was killed in Continuum.
Well, there could be like
they're pretty minor.
Didn't they have some like minor ones?
No, that's just minor ones.
There could be one or two out there, but they're not a real threat. They're trying to become.
Or they could become. There might have become a threat in 20 years since we last saw. Yeah. They've got their own Jafar, and I love all that.
They haven't explored the full galaxy. I mean, the galaxy's like it's the possibility they could awaken ancient race that's been asleep for.
What about the Wraith in the Pegasus galaxy? What's been happening with them since then? Because they weren't wiped out. They were still going, weren't they? At the end of Atlantis.
I don't know. Could it even make a musical episode where they all start singing?
Did I hear that? I think Doctor Who's going to do a musical. I think they're going to. I just. Oh God, that is the thing I'm dreading the most next year.
I've got to admit, see now, R&B Klingons had me in stitches, and I think that's one of the funniest things I've seen this year.
A lot of people have thought it was great. A lot of people. It's very Marmite reaction. You either love it or loathe it. I loved it. I thought it was really funny. I like the music. I just like the whole thing. Yeah.
When they slid back in chair. When they slid back in chair.
It was great. I'm gonna give that a rewatch actually. But anyway, I think that's pretty much it. So next week, Airplane. We don't often do comedy films, but Airplane 2, it is science fiction. It's based on a space shuttle.
It's science fiction. So Captain Kirk.
And Captain Kirk, and you even see the Enterprise there, which is
we do when he's looking for a telescope thing.
I love airplane films. I love that sort of humor.
I do.
Very broad. All right, Martin. Thank you very much. We will be back next week on the Solar One Sci-Fi podcast.
Live long and prosper. Yes.